Welcome to this week's Code Cookie. We're going to talk about a very special activity today that I feel is not used enough. So I hope through this video that more of you will start using it. And which activity is that? It's not the state activity and it's not the send email activity, it's the code activity. Before we dive into the code activity, I'm going to show you a bad example of what, not a good example I hope, on something that you should not do in Zervicepoint. So we have in our good old new hire service a drop down called department. And what we want here is that when you change the department, you want that to be a different approver for each department. So if you change to HR, one person, the HR manager, will approve this order. And if you change to IT, the IT manager will need to approve this order. So then perhaps we implement a JavaScript on this drop down. So we check if someone selects management. We put Johan P-son into a hidden input element, and then we bind that to a variable, and we use that variable as a prover on the workflow. And that's not a good idea because, as you can see here, now we can just access this field in JavaScript. So I can see that Anders Jägard is selected now, and here I can see that Johansson is selected now. And so if I'm a little bit, if I know a little bit of JavaScript, I can just set myself as an approver here, and then I get to approve my own order. That's not very good. So we don't want to have glitches like that in our service. So we should just have it done in the workflow instead. So we go into the workflow editor, and we want to have basically the same code in our code activity here. So I copy the code from here and paste it in here, and we need to do some adjustments to this. But before we do that, let's talk a little about the code activity in general. So you write JavaScript in here, so everything you can do, basically everything you can do with JavaScript in here. And we have support for arrow functions and stuff like that as well. We need to define parameters, and when it comes to parameters, you define input parameters and you also define output. So in this example, we're going to use the drop-down department as an input, but we don't want to modify the value. So I just take another name for it. And then we have to define the output, as I said. So you want to have something that matches a variable name that can pick up the calculation we do in here. So then we need to have the same name as the bound variable. And now let's update the script so it works in this context. And we're just going to look on department, and approver equals, and we can don't leave out that. And we have Richard Loaf, and we have Johansson and Johan P-son. Okay. And typically now you'd like to have an approval activity, and you choose a variable and you set it to approver, and then the person that you have determined through your logic will get an approval task in Zervicepoint. I just want to prove to you that this worked, so I put it in here. So it will write out a state with that name. I refresh and I choose management in a place order. Go into the front page and I need to have the process system running. And now something happened here. And it writes out Johan P-son. So that basically proves that it worked. Okay, so hope this has inspired you to start using the code activity. And hopefully also I inform you of something that you should not do. And see you next week. Bye.